and we don't get extensibility, and we get a lot of code we have to deal with, so it is actually a double jeopardy. What about reuse? Well, reuse is the holy grail in our field. You go to people and say, what's good about object-oriented programming? Oh, we can make everything reusable. Grady Booth said this really nicely. He said, don't make code reusable, first make it usable. Now, this is one thing you see quite often. You go to programmers and they say, why should I create code when I can create frameworks, right? So everyone wants to create framework. I was actually on a project, I was reviewing their code, and I noticed something really peculiar. I was looking at interfaces, and I love interfaces. I said, these guys are good. They got interfaces. I looked around, and there was reflection being used. I said to myself, I love these guys. I love reflection. They have used it. I looked around a little bit further, and I saw what they were doing. And they had factories. I mean, who doesn't love factories, right? I said, this is awesome. These guys have used factory. Then I went through and reviewed one more time, and I found something very, very strange. They had interfaces, and there were two kinds of interfaces in their system. The first kind of interface, they only had one class implementing it. And there were a few interfaces with no class at all implementing it. So I was a little puzzled. I went back to the team and said, help me out with this. How come you have interfaces that only have one classes? And they said, oh, we know what happened. The guys who wrote it left. That's the first thing they said. And those guys wanted to build a framework, so they created all of these things, and that quite didn't materialize. So when they left, we have all these interfaces hanging around with no real implementations for the second type. So this urge of creating something very reusable is in all of us, and we have to avoid the temptation. We got to create something that is usable. I was working with a company where they decided